Bar none, this is the most influential weapon the US military has ever created, and no, I won't apologize for that pun. I want to know all of the little known details about the development and performance of the Browning automatic rifle and its use by the US military during the Battle of Iwo Jima. Stick around to the end of the video to learn about the new, modern version of the weapon, because the legacy of the BAR is being brought into the modern age. Every time I see a picture of this rifle in someone's hands, it makes them look like they're a child holding their dad's gun because its proportions are so huge. This is because the BAR is infamous for being a kind of unwieldy weapon, and there's even rumors out there that the military only issued it to soldiers over 6 feet tall, so I wouldn't have qualified. Those turned out to be untrue, of course. The heavy weapons are only issued to the new privates. So, it originally weighed about 18 pounds. That's almost the same weight as the modern M249 saw. It's also 8 pounds heavier than any weight I grab at the gym. Just kidding, I've never been to the gym. This video is sponsored by nixplay, the portable Wi-Fi cloud photo sharing display. One of the most iconic photos of all time comes from the Battle of Iwo Jima. It allowed our entire nation to share in the moment of the iconic flag raising. The nixplay photo display device is a great way to share moments with the family without having them publicly posted all over the internet. This photo sharing device helps the family feel closer even when you're separated by a huge distance. Go into the description below and click the link and grab a nixplay portable cloud photo display. So the BAR was actually first field tested in combat by the weapon designer's own son during World War I, but this happened only a few months before the end of World War I, so it wasn't fully combat tested at that point. Some foreign allied countries like France, who saw the weapon in action, wanted to acquire tons of them right away because of how effective it was. But they would have to wait until World War II to see widespread use. The fact that it was designed with World War I in mind helps to explain some of the perceived design flaws that we'll get into now. For instance, a lot of people point out, why does it have such a small magazine capacity of 20 rounds if it was meant to be an automatic rifle? Fine, good question. But you have to remember, in World War I, the largest magazine size for most weapons was 5 rounds back then, and they were bolt action. So the BAR at the time would have had 5 times the ammo and would have been fully automatic. Its purpose was going to employ something called a walking fire doctrine. This meant the Army originally imagined and trained for clearing no man's land with the BAR. They thought troops would slowly walk forward while firing bursts, and while that didn't exactly work out, trench warfare essentially ended after World War I. What it did do is it created a role that the US military has been obsessed with ever since. If you like the BAR, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. It helps promote our content across YouTube. When you look at what the weapon does and how it does it, this is exactly what the modern day M27, for instance, is designed to do. It's a low capacity, lightweight machine gun that a single person can operate. The BAR is part of that philosophy of giving the individual enough firepower to take the initiative on the battlefield. The interesting thing is the Japanese Empire in World War II had almost the exact opposite philosophy. According to the US Field Manual, the Japanese soldiers were incredibly strong at working as part of a unit to rush objectives. They even did famous frontal bayonet assaults, but the American forces quickly noted that once a Japanese officer was taken out, the remaining troops often ran and didn't know what to do as individuals. They lost morale and even sometimes deserted without an officer to lead them. So the BAR might look outclassed on paper, but the added ability to be able to operate it independently made a big difference for the US troops, who were encouraged to take the initiative. And in just a few minutes, we'll go over the story of Private Wilson, a Marine BAR gunner who received the Medal of Honor for using the weapon exactly as it was designed to be used and for taking the initiative on the battlefield. So our generation grew up looking at photographs of our family serving in World War II. They're a part of who we are now, and it keeps us connected through those shared moments. The creator of the nixplay digital frame understood that. As a father of 2, his family was spread out across the globe, and he wanted to keep them connected. That's how he got the idea to create the nixplay digital frame. The device connects to a cloud, allowing the family to share pictures and video to the digital frame instantly. It even works with your Amazon Alexa and mobile phone. Click the link in the description below to check out the nixplay widescreen photo and video playback device. Before we look at the combat effectiveness reports, let's take a look at the details of the BAR. So the reason it didn't have a 30 round or more capacity magazine was because the 30-06 round that it fired is so large. That would have made the weapon even more cumbersome than it already was. And it would have added to the size of the magazine, which would have then protruded out too far down, so the bipod would have had to have been higher up. A higher up bipod means more of your dome piece exposed to the enemy. They were able to get the BAR down to about 18 pounds for World War II version. Because of the low magazine capacity, this is actually where the idea of one machine gun shooting while the other reloads comes from. This doctrine was used in World War II to help fight against the Germans, who had portable high capacity weapons. I found two kind of funny little known facts about the BAR by digging deeper into its history. Apparently, an interesting and commonplace trick comes from the BAR. 100 years ago, the people of Browning did a demonstration in front of the members of Congress. Part of the demo was a soldier taking apart the weapon and putting it back together in less than 2 minutes. Obviously, this was a big hit, as close as the military gets to doing a magic trick. Every machine gun school at the time adopted the blindfold test after that. Let's see if I'm still able to disassemble and assemble a weapon blindfolded. Still got it. Now, thanks to whoever's bright idea it was to do a blindfold demonstration, we all have to learn how to do that with every weapon in the military. That makes whoever created the blindfold test for the BAR the Blue Falcon of the Week. The other fascinating fact is that John Wayne credits his shoot from the hip style from this kind of walking fire tactic. Specifically, he credits Private Wilson Watson, Medal of Honor recipient from Iwo Jima, who took out 60 enemy Japanese by shooting the BAR from his hip. He was serving with the 3rd Marine Division a few weeks after they'd landed on the beach. They're making their way deeper into the island when his squad is stopped by intense enemy fire from a fortification. So the Japanese were amazing at crafting camouflage for their pillboxes. I got this information from the Medal of Honor citation and an old primary source. It was an old Army document that our editorial team found, which was an incredible discovery. It details and outlines every weapon system and tactics used by the Japanese Empire in World War II. So here's what Private Wilson was up against on that hilltop. He likely ran into a company-sized element. The Japanese had the automatic machine gun Type 11 that was oddly loaded with 6 separate clips, which gave it a 30-round capacity. Yes, I used the term clips correctly there. Better luck next time, all you internet snipers. So, Private Wilson rushed the pillbox that his squad was taking fire from. He fired his BAR from the hip the whole time to keep the enemy's heads down. Him and his assistant gunner, who was feeding him ammo, made their way to the pillbox. One great thing about the weapon is the fast reload speed. So his assistant gunner is throwing him magazines, he's reloading and keeping fire on the pillbox. He gets close enough to throw a hand grenade into the pillbox. He's quick enough to realize that the enemy is going to try to escape out the back from the grenade he just threw in. So he runs around the back of the pillbox and he destroys the retreating soldiers with automatic rifle fire. He continued to engage the counterattack made by the Japanese. One of the doctrines for Japanese soldiers that I learned from the rundown was that they would have a reserve unit behind the pillbox to reinforce the position. So Marine Private Wilson destroys the pillbox only to come under intense fire from the reserve Japanese position. He single-handedly fights that counterattack off. He gets shot 7 times and continues firing his BAR for 15 minutes, at which point he runs out of ammo and the rest of his platoon make their way to his forward position. Let's learn a little more about the development of the weapon that helped allow Private Wilson to take out 60 enemies. John Browning originally tested 40,000 rounds being fired through the BAR, and it went off without a single malfunction. That was at a rate of 600 rounds per minute. But of course, that test was done under pristine conditions. This wasn't after weeks of being carried through the jungle. So, how would it perform under those conditions? Well, it frequently jammed if it wasn't cleaned, and some critics of the weapon even described it as a kind of Rube Goldberg machine, meaning it was overly complicated with a lot of moving parts. It has 70 pieces in total. It has a max effective range of 500 meters, a sustained rate of fire of 60 rounds per minute, and the design called for a fixed barrel that couldn't be changed out by the operator, so you needed to make sure that you weren't overheating the barrel. US forces started phasing it out in the 1950s during the Korean War. When I say the military never fully got away from the BAR design concept, I mean it. Even the M16 has design features that are very similar to the BAR. So it might have been dead for a couple of decades, but in 2006, a company called Ohio Ordnance Works started working on a 21st century reboot. It's called the Heavy Counter Assault Rifle, the HCAR. It now has an AR-style buffer tube, an adjustable stock, it has a shorter barrel, 16 inches down from the original 24 inches. And the new version weighs 11 pounds instead of 18. It has a pistol grip on it. Wait a second. This thing is barely like the original. I feel like they just said it's a new version of the BAR to get some kind of nostalgia points from all the World War II buffs out there. I don't know. Some of the design looks reminiscent of the original, but overall it looks like it shares very little in common with the World War II weapon. Everything you see about the gun, it's being touted as the spiritual successor, so I don't know what I'm talking about here. Either way, it looks like a great rifle. So, that's our story on the BAR. Please remember to check out our sponsor, nixplay. They make amazing products to help you share photos privately with your family. I'm Cappy, Task and Purpose out.